Okay, let me brief you with how we can effectively follow this study. All right, now this year we have 3 series. Okay, this is called the Training for the Path series, TP Training for the Path, TP2021. Okay, so this is every first Saturday, 8 to 10 p.m. This is for you all and people in your zone. Okay, so we divided more or less into 2 zones, the east and the west, to try to accommodate everyone on earth, so to speak. Then the second series is called Body, Mind, and Meditation. It's the BM series, Body, Mind, Meditation, BM 2021. And this is every 4th Sunday, 10 to 12 noon Singapore time. Okay, so there'll be other global times, so that this is more suitable for the West, for the US, South America. If you're in Europe, you can join either one. Then there is a third series is organized by the SKE, Malacca Buddhist Association. I'll be giving 2 talks. In fact, we did that last year, very successful series. So this year we're continuing with 2 talks again, two classes every month, every other Friday. Okay, so you can look up in the Telegraph page, or even on our own Telegraph page, you can see all these programs are all there, right? Now, for effective study, you can have your notes in front of you. Of course, there's some people who don't like notes. That's fine too. You can just listen, and if you have your notes before you, you can write down any notes as I talk. Okay, so that helps a lot. Okay, let's start with the study then. Here's the notes. You can see the note online. So these are the contents. Okay, today we will look at sections 1.1 to 1.3. Now, don't worry too much about the sections. If you just like to sit back and listen, that's fine. And then after that, you listen to the tape again and then look at your notes. So the study method depends on you. For this whole year, this series will focus on this book, SD 10.16, which is a special volume on the Eightfold Path. Now, the Eightfold Path is the key teaching in Buddhism. It belongs to what is called the 7 sets. Now, you can see in section 111, the 7 sets. Okay. In other words, how do you summarize Buddhism? What are the basic teachings? Okay, there are 7. Okay. The first is, notice the numbers. They kind of go 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, and then 7, and then 8. Okay. So number 1 are the 4 focuses of mindfulness. So that is one summary, one way of studying Buddhism, if you like, especially focus on meditation. Number 2, you have the 4 right strivings. These are 4 right efforts. And then you have the 4 basis of spiritual success, also has to do with meditation. And the 5 spiritual faculties also has to do with meditation. 5 powers refer to those faculties in the arahat. Then the 7 awakening factors. These are the opposite of the hindrances. They also have to do with meditation on the deeper level. And then you have the Eightfold Path. Now, what's interesting about the Eightfold Path is that it's not only the last set, but it's also the most complete and detailed set, right? So we all know the Eightfold Path very well, right? The standard definition is given to you, section 111.2. Now, in the Samyutta, it is mentioned, it is this very noble Eightfold Path, that is to say, right view, samādhi, right thought, or often translated as right intention, samā-saṅkappa, right speech, samā-vāca, right action, samā-kammanta, right livelihood, samā-ājīva, right mindfulness, samā-sati, and right concentration, samā-samādhi. Okay, so the word right is there, samma. Okay, of course you can translate samma in other ways, like sometimes it can be translated as perfect even, full, correct. It is very similar to Latin summa. Notice the spelling very close. Latin and Pali and Sanskrit, they all come from the same family of Indo-European languages. Okay, and then you have the Pali name is of the Eightfold Path is Arya Atangika Magga. Okay, Arya means noble. Okay, here noble meaning the people who follow this path become noble. They are ennoble. In other words, they learn to get rid of their baser qualities, defilements. Their minds become, their bodies are more refined in action, in speech. Their minds are clearer and calmer. So they are noble in that sense. The Buddha purposely used the word noble because in his time, there's a class system, so that the Brahmins, they are fair-skinned, they think they declare they are the highest class and so on, and they are the noble ones. And then you have the Kshatriya, they also call themselves the nobles. They are the born nobles, if you like. They are the warriors and the rulers, and so on. So the Buddha says, well, there's no such thing being born noble. It's how you behave, how you conduct yourself. So he uses the word noble in a sense that if you practice this path of inner peace, then you are noble. So Arya, the Atta is 8. Notice Atta in Atta very close to number 8. Even in Hindi, I think it's, in Indian language is At. You cut it down. By apocope, you drop the last vowel, becomes At. It's like 8. Okay, and then you have Octo, very close to the Pali also, 8. Anga means unit, factors, limbs. Then Magga is the path. We see Buddhism as a path, Magga or Marga in Sanskrit. Magga is a path. That means we have to travel on it. You have to practice it. You have to act on it. You have to do it yourself. The idea of self-effort is very important. This is kind of a very important quality, a very important characteristic of Buddhism, because other religions tell you, oh, just surrender yourself to some higher power, other power, and everything will be all right. But in Buddhism, it's just the opposite. You can change things because it's how you think. It's your mind that creates the world you live in. So you have to walk this path back into yourself to kind of rearrange what's in your mind and so on, so that you become a better person. So it's a journey we make on this path that makes us saints, if you like, nobles. Now, okay, we have looked at the various limbs of the Eightfold Path now. So here's a summary. So in this first lesson, it's an overview. We're going to look at the summary. This is 1121. Okay, if you have the notes, or otherwise you can just listen. The Noble Eightfold Path, it has the widest range of teachings of all the 7 sets. So number 1 is right view. Right view comes first because right view underlies all the other 7 factors, 7 limbs. Without right view, there's no samma, there's no rightness there. So you have number 1, right view comes first. And right view means directly seeing into the Four Noble Truths. Okay, I'm just going to say this and won't say much about it because we're going to talk in detail later on in other lectures, in other talks, and also in the other series on the 5 aggregates. Right intention, Samma Sankappa, there are 3 aspects here. It's how we think, how we direct our mind before we act. So the mind should be charitable. You have this idea of inner generosity and being shown outwardly, loving kindness, accepting others as they are, and compassion, responding to the sufferings of others. Then limb number 3 is right speech, samavacha. And here there are 4 kinds. And this is called apophatic kind of practice, not doing something, refraining from false speech, refraining from divisive speech, refraining from harsh or hurting speech, refraining from frivolous talk, right? Then we, okay, you notice one more thing on the far right hand side, the right view, right intention, you have the big brackets on the right, it says wisdom, right? So these 2 limbs form the aggregate of wisdom. Now, in beginning with right speech, right action, right livelihood, you have on the far right, the word is moral conduct. So this is the second training. Sorry, it is the first training. Moral conduct is the first training. I will explain why in a while. So this is the training in moral conduct, Sīla, all right? So I've mentioned right speech under this category. And then right action, sama kamanta. Again here, the language is prophetic, in other words, it's negative language, avoiding, not doing 3 things. Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking the not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. You notice, you remember these 3 are the first 3 precepts, right? And then the right speech is combined to the 4th precept, right? And then the 5th precept is about keeping the mind unclouded so that we can meditate. Now, in the Eightfold Path, there is another limb called right livelihood, and this is very important. And here, sama ajiva, right livelihood here refers to refraining from wrong speech and wrong action. These are actions of the body, speech and action, and our work should reflect these qualities. We'll be talking about all this in detail as we go along this year. Okay, now we come to the 3rd section, mental concentration. You can see these words on the far right after the big brackets, samādhi. So this is the 3rd. This actually is a 2nd training, sila, samādhi, paññā. So samādhi is 2nd training. We have right effort, samavayama, preventing unreason, unwholesome states. So this is the action of no action. If you have not done something bad, not thought something bad, don't keep it that way. Don't let it happen. Abandoning a reason, unwholesome states. Right? So when a negative state has arisen, we let it go, abandon it. 2nd right effort. 3rd right effort, cultivating unarisen, wholesome states. For example, if you have not meditated before, you start to learn, practice meditation. That is cultivating unarisen, wholesome states. Maintaining a reason, wholesome states. So continue that practice. So these are the 4 right efforts. Then you have right mindfulness, samasati. These are the 4 satipatthana. Contemplation of the body or body-based meditation. Contemplation of feeling or feeling-based meditation. Contemplation of the mind, mind-based meditation. And contemplation of dharmas, dhamma nupassana. Now here dhamma can mean mental states, the contents of your mind, deep in meditation. Those contents are actually manifestation of reality. For example, the hindrances, 5 aggregates, the thoughts that arise, so you're aware of them, you watch them. So it's called dharmas. And then the last one is right concentration, samādhi. Here defined as cultivating the 4 Jhanas. These are very deep meditation, right? So we'll talk about all this in more detail in due course. So now the Eightfold Path is divided into 3 trainings. In terms of teaching, we start with right view 1 to 8. Like that's a kind of learning the whole, all the 8 paths, all the 8 factors. In practice, we start with the body. Moral virtue deals with the body, speech and action. So that is called sila, and that is SOD. We noted right speech, right action, right livelihood, right? And then the second, when the body is calm, when the body is more disciplined, then we are ready to deal with the mind. So that's the second level of training, samādhi. Samādhi here can mean meditation, it can also mean concentration. And moral virtue, sila, and mental concentration, samādhi, together they form like the basis for wisdom. Paññā, so that's the third training. This paññā is seeing directly into true reality, seeing impermanence, suffering, and non-self. And as we do this, we free ourselves from what is false, and therefore we suffer less, and we go on like that, building up our joy and happiness. So that is the Eightfold Path. But in this book, you will notice that there are two more factors, that is right knowledge and right freedom. Okay, so that makes it the tenfold rightness. And that's the complete path with the attaining of arahathood, if you like. So we're going to learn all the 10 stages in this series of lessons for this year, the TP2021. Okay. So now we go on to 1132 now. There is a sutta called the Mahachattārisaka Sutta, M117, and this sutta highlights why right view comes first. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, right view comes first because it, in a sense, defines and characterizes all the other factors. Okay, and basically, right view is defined in a number of suttas. You can see a bit below there. This is a traditional definition. There is what is given, what is offered, what is sacrificed. So here, in other words, there is goodness in giving. This is one of the basic spiritual or religious practice or Buddhist practice, if you like, the idea of giving. Of course, giving here, there are two kinds. One is material giving, like food, clothing, shelter, medicine. And the other is non-material giving. Giving your time, giving advice, helping others with what you know. Just listening to people is also a kind of giving. And of course, the best of all is teaching the Dhamma. That's the gift of the Dhamma is said to be the highest gift. So this idea of giving is the key virtue in Buddhism. There is fruit and result of good and bad actions. So karma exists. So this is what keeps the world safe, if you like. There is this world, the next world. Basically, this is not the only world. There are other worlds. So in a very simple way, you can say there's nature around us, and we have to respect this. This is nature, this other world. And the meaning is there is this next world, the future life. So this is not our only life, you know. So we should be acting properly so that we are reborn in a good state too. We don't suffer from our negative actions, which is really not very helpful. Now, the next one is there are mother and father, meaning here we arise from parents, and then it is through our parents that we gain a human body, and through this love and training from our parents, we are humanized, we become human. So this aspect is basic to awakening. You have to start being human first. So in that sense, the family is important. Parents are important in that sense. This is the basic idea in early Buddhism. Now, the next phrase is a bit tricky, spontaneously born beings. Usually this phrase refers to the non-returners, but here I think it refers to beings that are reborn. It simply means that there is this rebirth. Rebirth occurs. This is not our only life. So you can see karma very often not seeming to be like the kind of justice we want. We see bad people suffering. We see bad people prospering, good people suffering. So here, karma says that, well, karma spreads over 3 lives, the past, the present, the future. So You may think that you do something bad, you may get away with it, but it will come back. Okay, so that's the meaning here. There are Brahmins, recluses who, living rightly and practicing rightly, proclaim this world and the next after having directly known and realized it for themselves. So here, basically, the Buddha is saying that there are people out there, wise people who live who live spiritual lives, live holy lives, if you like, and they have some kind of really good knowledge, very helpful knowledge about afterlife or about living the good life in the sense of a good moral life. And these people are worth respecting in the sense that they are good people. And in other words, it is possible to be good through any religion. And this is something we should accept and understand and try to work on that level. There is a sutta called the Udumbarika Sihanada Sutta, which is the second lesson with the SKE Global Sutta series. We will talk about this very interesting aspect of interfaith dialogue and so on. Okay. All right. So when we look at the path, there are two aspects. Now I am in 1133. There is the mundane path, and that kind of worldly level. That's the level we are practicing. First, we keep the precepts, meaning the 5 precepts. The 5 precepts are basically telling us what are of really true value to us. First one is our life is of value to us. That's why the first precept is to respect life. And to live is to be happy. You need to be happy. So that's the second value. Therefore, we should not steal from others, because the things that we work for, that we have, brings us happiness. So when you steal from someone, you're effectively taking away the person's happiness. So the second precept is about the value of happiness. The third is against sexual misconduct. This is basically, the third precept basically protects the value of freedom, the right to say no, the right to keep to yourself, so to speak. And the fourth precept is about truth, right? So this is the value of truth. All these 4 precepts should be based on truth for them to work. And the 5th precept is on the idea of the mind, of mental growth, mental cultivation, to keep the mind unclouded so that we can use the mind to build ourselves up beyond the body. So when we practice the mundane path and we reach streamwinning, and from streamwinning onwards, it's called the supramundane path, the spiritual path, if you like. That's the path that is sure to lead to awakening. All right. So there's a list of suttas here in the next section telling you all these various aspects of the Eightfold Path, which you can read on your own if you want to go into more details. Now there is a series of 8 suttas, 8 very short suttas in the Anguttara, which talks about the Eightfold Path. So here SD 1016 brackets 1 to 8. And you can see further down A 1.18.39, right? And you see the name Ekaka Samādhi Sutta. Okay, now Samādhi, as you know, refers to the first limb of the Eightfold Path, the discourse on right view. So this is SD 1016 number 1. So this is a very short sutta, just a few lines. Bhikshus, it is for just the time, if for just the time of a finger snap, a monk cultivates right view. This monk Bhikshus is said to dwell not vainly in meditation. He who is the doer of the teacher's teaching, who keeps to his advice, he eats not the country's alms food in vain. What more to speak of those who develop it? Okay, here the Buddha is addressing the monks directly. He's telling the monks, look, you have to cultivate right view. And if you understand what right view is, you cultivate it, then you are regarded as meditating, and you are practicing my teaching, the Buddha's teaching. You eat the country's alms food, the alms food that you receive with you deserve it. Okay. The opposite is if the monk doesn't keep to all this, then he eats it as a thief. So that's the other term which is used. So here, if the monk practices reflecting on the right view, he consumes the country's alms food deservedly. So what more to speak of those who develop it? So here is where the Buddha opens up to everyone, you and I, even though we are not monks. So if we make the effort to understand what right view is, we are as good as the monks in terms of practice on a mental level. In fact, in the suttas, in the commentaries of the suttas, we are often told, whenever the Buddha says monks, it refers to those who are present, those who are meditating, those who are practitioners. Because when we close our eyes and meditate, we get into the state of monkness, or if you like, okay? The meditating state, the meditating mind, which is more or less the same as that of a monk. That's what the monk's supposed to do. This is what the Buddha means. All right. So the word monk here doesn't refer merely to a status, but to that of practice in this case. So this is the first sutta, a short one. So here is where you see this tradition, the oral tradition, where the whole passage repeats itself. Only the highlighted word changes. So if you look at the next one, you find that you just remove that highlighted word, you put right thought. Okay, Bhikshus is this for just a time of a finger snap. If a monk cultivates right thought, right, so there you are. The Buddha says, just for a moment, you just think of right thought. You think of charity, of loving kindness, of compassion. You have practiced my teaching. You have done meditation. The Buddha is saying just one thought, and from one thought comes many thoughts, right? And then the whole format is repeated. You just change to right speech. You can see the highlighted words further down, and then you go further down, you change the keyword to right action, and then further down, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and at the bottom be right concentration. So bhikshus, if for just the time of a finger snap, a monk cultivates right concentration, this monk bhikshus is said to dwell not vainly in meditation. It is a doer, he is a doer of the teacher's teaching, who keeps to his advice. He eats not the country's alms food in vain. What more to speak of those who develop it, who cultivate it? Okay, so here, in other words, we take all the 8 factors or the 8 limbs together. So here, we should not give the excuse and say, oh, I can't sit very long in meditation. The Buddha is saying, if you can show loving kindness just for a moment of a finger snap, you have practiced his teaching. So you just say, may all beings be well and happy. That you have practiced the Buddha's teaching. Elsewhere in the same book, Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha uses the metaphor of the time it takes to milk a cow. You just pull the cow's udder and milk comes out. So the Buddha says, if you take just that time to show loving kindness, you have practiced my teaching. Right? So that's how you start. So even in the short way, that also is meditation. So here, when you look at the Eightfold Path, it is regarded as condition, because the Eightfold Path are conditions that, which are spiritual conditions, which help us to grow as an individual. And although the Eightfold Path is conditioned, made up of parts, it changes us, it leads on to the unconditioned state. The unconditioned state that doesn't change is nirvana. Okay, so this is where using deeper Dhamma language, when we practice the Eightfold Path, we steal all formations, the stealing of all formations. Formations refer to what we form, ideas we form with our minds, and the world that we see around us, which the mind has formed. I'll be talking about this process in more detail in the other series on the 5 aggregates, the BMM series. For example, let's say when we see something, let's say we see a person, we don't really know this person, but we project our idea onto this person, and that's our view of a person. So we don't really know people, we only know our perception of that person, and we go around living in that way. Okay? We live in this world of perception in our own self-created world. So that's the meaning of formations. Yeah. So when we walk the Eightfold Path, we still all the emotions. We calm down all the emotions. This is we're going a little deep here, and this is what the Buddha says about this stilling of formations to this someone called Malunkyā Putta. Malunkyā Putta. This monk is very intellectual. He asks the Buddha lots of intellectual questions. He goes into retreat very late in his life as a monk, in fact. So the Buddha explains to him here what is meant by stilling of the formations. Just let's look at it. Okay, this is section 1136. 1136. You can see further down the verse, beginning with the word then Malunkyā Putta. We got that? Then Malunkyā Putta, you are not by that, right? So if you follow the Eightfold Paths and you do your meditation well, and you attain this level of awakening, you are not by that. When Malunkyā Putta, you are not by that, then you will not be therein. When Malunkyā Putta, you are not therein, then you will be neither here nor beyond, nor between the two. This is itself the ending of all of suffering. This is the ending of suffering. Okay, you're wondering, wow, what are they talking about? So this is where you have two meditating minds communicating. So they have reached such a level of calmness and clarity that the Buddha can speak directly, mind to mind. Of course, we need commentary, and it's very good that we do have a commentary, and here in simple language. Not by that, in Pali natena, not by that means we will not be aroused by lust, and we will not be controlled by what lust hates. In other words, once you have lust, you also have something you don't like. What you like, that means you have something that you don't like, kind of back and forth thing. And other defilements will come in. So we're not troubled by lust, by running after objects. That's the meaning of not by that, not controlled by lust. We will not be therein, not tata. Not therein means we are not defined by what we sense, what we hear, sense, or cognize. Basically, the 5 senses. We are defined by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and number 6, what we think, right? But in this case, this person who has come out of his meditation and has awakened, he's normal, defined by this sense, by the world, by the senses, by the world. In other words, he's free of it. The next paragraph, we will be neither here nor beyond, nor between the two. It means, okay, the Pali here is ne vida na hurangwa ubayang antarena. Okay, means that we will not be reborn anywhere here in this world or in other worlds, or even a realm that is in between. Okay. Another way of interpreting it is the 3 periods of time: past, present, future. So there you are. You have this meditative language, then interpreted in very simple language. Okay. So yeah, all this may sound quite profound for us. So now let's come down to basics. So, you and I, we want to practice Buddhism. So what do we do? Right? How can we walk this path? Now, to really practice and awaken in this life, there are three things you need to overcome. They're called the three fetters. The three fetters are part of a set of 10 fetters. So the different kinds of saints in Buddhism are defined by the fetters that they break. So these 10 fetters it's a very interesting psychology of the mind. So today we're just going to look at the first three. Okay? So we look at the 1.2, 0.1.2, 1.1212. Okay, you have the 10 fetters. The first three, you have self-identity view. Number two, spiritual doubt, attachment to rituals and vows. Okay, these are the three that we need to overcome. They're not as difficult as they look, actually. They're just short words for situations that we go through very often. We don't even realize it. That's why we are suffering and we're not on the path. The first one is self-identity view. It simply means we tend to identify with our body, some part of our body, or the mind, okay, with one of the five aggregates, if you like. Okay, so as I said here again, I'll talk in some detail in the talk on the BMM series, which focuses on the five aggregates. So once you identify with your body, some people say, oh, I am my body. Some people say, I am my mind. And once you do that, then if your body gets hurt, you say, oh, I am hurt and so on. So you identify with it and you get very unhappy and you suffer. So basically what the Buddha is saying, we are not really our body. Why? Because this body changes all the time. So yeah, we are in a sense residing in this body. In a sense, it is our body because we have to take care of it, but that's about it. We have to understand that we don't have full control over it. We have to respect it. To respect it means to take it as it is. It is impermanent. It has its own way of happening to itself. It falls sick when we are not even ready for it and so on. But we should not identify with this body, then we will not be suffering, in other words. So the body is impermanent. That's the way it is. Accept it. That's the meaning. That's just a summary. We'll talk in more detail another time. Number two, spiritual doubt. Here means we should not doubt the fact that we can, through self-reliance, through our own effort, walk the path. In fact, there's no other way. You have to walk the path yourself. So if you have doubt and you say, oh, I can't do it, I need someone else to do it for me, then it won't work. You have to do it yourself somehow. You have to take the food yourself. You have to take the medicine yourself. So you cannot. So here in Buddhism, we try to remove this doubt so that you can make this self-effort. This is very important to us as an individual, as a person, to break the second fetter that we have doubt. And so we must have blind faith in something outside of us. And this is what the third fetter is about, really. Attachment to rituals and vows. We try to look for answers outside of ourselves, especially in some idea of some kind of agency, some kind of power, some kind of God that will help us. And we think that by prayer, which is a ritual, by taking vows, we can sort things out. In a word, this is called superstition. Superstition is when we look for answers outside of ourselves through problems which originate and happen within ourselves. So these are the three fetters. Okay? Now I won't go into the rest of the 10. We will talk about them elsewhere. We will come back to look at the details again. There is a diagram here, 1, 2, 1, 3, where you can see roughly overview how the fetters, when overcome, lead to different levels of noble sainthood. Now, on the right-hand side, you can see stream winner, right, Sotapanna, and on the left-hand side, you see stream winner. On the far right, it says the first three fetters are broken. Now, then, when the stream winner, further you look at the square below on the far right, the first three fetters and diminishing of lust, hate, and delusion. These are the three unwholesome roots. So when the stream winner weakens the three unwholesome roots further, greed, hate, delusion, it becomes a once returner. Okay, that's the word on the far left. Then, when all the five fetters are broken, you can see five fetters in the earlier diagram. Then you have the person becomes a non-returner. Now, what's the relationship here? The stream winner and a non-returner, they are still kind of stuck in the sense world. They're still dependent on the senses. And you don't need deep meditation to attain these levels. Whereas to become a non-returner, you need to do jhana. You need to go into deep meditation because the non-returner overcomes all attachment to the body and has no interest in pleasure of the body anymore because he's enjoying this deep jhanic bliss. So he's called non-returner because he will not be reborn in this world anymore. When he passes away, he will be an arahat. And the arahat, of course, is the one who's broken all the 10 fetters. So this is a kind of overview of the 4 kinds of saints. The 5 lower fetters keep us in the sense world. The 5 higher fetters, although we are free from the sense world, we can still be caught in what are called the form world and the formless world. These are higher meditative worlds. They're very refined world, but you can still be stuck there. And there's a chance of being reborn there if you're stuck there. So these higher fetters helps us to free ourselves from the higher realms of mental existence. So that is an overview of the 10 fetters, right? Okay, so it's 9 o'clock now, so we take a short break. Right, let's look at 1.2.1.5, all right? So now we go further down after this, yes. Next page. Now, okay, the way that the suttas talk about stream winning seems to be easy, as someone put it, right? But it's not just becoming a stream winning like that. What does it entail? Okay, so there are, you can say that there's 4 areas. To be a stream winner, number 1, you have to make sure that you keep your precepts properly. You try your best. Fulfill moral virtue, in other words. So you have to be mindful and filled with loving kindness to at least keep the 5 precepts. Of course, some people may say, oh dear, no, I'm not good enough. It's difficult for me to keep the precepts. The whole idea of the precepts is to try your best. And when you do break the precepts, when the precepts are broken, you examine why that happens. That's how the precepts are kept. You don't intend to break the precepts, but we still break them. Then we find out why, and then from there, we improve ourselves, in other words. So number 2, we have to maintain some level of mindfulness. We have to find out why do we keep breaking the precepts, for example, right? So, and once you do that, you know yourself better, and you become more mindful, more restrained. So this mindfulness aspect is very important. It works together with moral virtue. And once you do this, you go on watching, looking, studying yourself, wisdom arises, self-knowledge. So wisdom is self-knowledge, self-understanding, which can be applied to the bigger world. So it's the 3rd basic level. And then you have the 3 fetters being broken. So now everything fits in nicely, and that's how stream winning works. So notice in this case, we we don't talk about deep meditation. We don't talk about dhyana. You don't need dhyana. You don't need jhana, deep meditation at this level. What we need is mindfulness, presence of mind, and of course some learning helps, mindfulness helps, whatever meditation you can do definitely helps. Of course, in some stream winners, they can attain jhanas too. That will make their journey faster. That will definitely helps very much. So what we should do as lay practitioners is to aspire to stream winning. We say, okay, I know it's difficult to be a stream winner, but that's what I want to be. I want to reach the path. At this point, we are still outsiders. As long as we have not reached the path, we are outsiders. Yes, we are Buddhist practitioners, but it's like we are standing outside this big university. You have not applied yet. You're still outside. You got to go in and apply to be a student. All right. So once we aspire, then our mind is directed in that way. We say, oh, okay, I have aspired to stream winning. I've got to try my best to do the precepts. And when I do break the precepts, let me find out why. And that's your mindfulness. And then when you begin to understand what's going on, how your mind works, that's wisdom. Then the three fetters are more easily broken. So in this spirit, the 10 suttas of chapter 25, S25, Samyutta Nikaya, there are 10 suttas there, beginning with the Anicca Chakku Sutta, S25.1. The Buddha says, if you reflect on impermanence, you will attain stream winning. Whether you are one of faith, you are faith inclined, or you are wisdom inclined. You can be either personality. Okay? You will attain stream winning in this life itself. Definitely by the time of passing away. So in other words, when passing away, that the mind flows naturally to the next birth. This habitual karma will take over. And since your habitual karma is to reflect on impermanence, you try your best to be a good person, that karma will take over. And that's what will make you a stream winner. That is why these 10 suttas of the Okanta Samyutta, S25, are really worth reading as a lay person. Make sure you study them well. It will give you strength to aspire towards reaching the path in this life itself. Right? Now, the next point is 1219 about spiritual progress. When we recite the reflection on the Noble Sangha, we often talk about Chattari Purisa Yugani, Atta Purisa Puggala, the 4 pairs of person, the 8 individuals. Who are they? Here you see a diagram that summarizes these individuals. The 4 individuals are the arahat, the non-returner, once returner, stream winner, okay, according to level of importance, okay, on the right-hand column. Now on the left-hand column, you find each of these 4 individual. Look at the arahat first. You start with number 8. This is the 8th individual. The arahat, fruition, phala, and the one on the path, magga, the path not yet full-fledged. So you have each of the 4 individuals that you have magga, phala, you have path, fruition, path, fruition. Now this is not difficult to understand at all. It's like undergraduate, graduate, right? So you have this arahat to be, arahat become. Non-returner to be, non-returner become. Once returner to be, once returner become. Stream winner to be, stream winner become. So altogether, these are the 8 individuals to show that there's this gradual way which people gain the various stages. All right. Now we come to a very interesting point where the Abhidhamma differs from the suttas. Okay. In the Abhidhamma, for example, it is often said that this moment is only a single moment the attainment of this sainthood. But it's not possible to be a single moment, because we have suttas where various saints are mentioned and they're sitting in a row, and then this person's giving food to them, and they have to take time to take food. So if we say the state is just but a moment, these various saints, won't be able to eat, right? So the suttas do not see these 8 kinds of saints as merely momentary beings, right? So that they are, this is just a Abhidhamma idea which is not based in the sutra. So do read this passage a bit more carefully if you like, 1.2.1.11, right? So it's just a technical point. If you don't understand, it doesn't matter, just leave it like that, right? Now we come to next section, 1.2.2.2, 1222. We talked about the supramundane path as having 10 limbs, or sometimes called the tenfold rightness, or sammata. Samma is the adjective. Sammata is the abstract noun, rightness. Right? Samma is right, sammata is rightness. So here you can see the Eightfold Path plus the last 2 limbs. You have the making the 10 rightness. So you see the in the Mahachattarīsaka Sutta, M117, the Buddha saying, in this regard, bhikshus, right view comes first. And bhikshus, how does right view come first? From right view comes right intention. From right intention comes right speech. From right speech comes right action. From right action comes right livelihood. From right livelihood comes right effort. From right effort comes right mindfulness. From right mindfulness comes right concentration. From right concentration comes right knowledge. From right knowledge comes right freedom. Right? So you see a kind of sequence, a kind of gradual development here. Then the closing line, thus bhikshus, the learner on the path is endowed with 8 limbs, but the arahat with 10 limbs. So notice here, the last 2 limbs refer to the arahat. So this is the full scale path, if you like. Now all these 4 kind of saints, they're called disciples, savaka, or they're called noble, arya, or arya savaka, noble disciples. I already explained why they're called nobles, because they have overcome defilements, they have walked the path, they are walking the path. They're called savaka. The word savaka means one who hears, who listens and hears. So they listen to the Dhamma, they pay full attention to it, they understand it. So they're called savaka, listeners. And this idea of listening is very important in early Buddhism, because it's a direct transmission of the Dhamma from the teacher, the Buddha or the Arahat teacher. Right? So that's why savaka is very important. So the word disciple, it differs to the noble ones. So as lay practitioners, we wouldn't call ourselves a disciple. Since I'm not awakened, I'm not a streamwinner yet, although my wife and I aspire to it, we won't call ourselves savaka, to keep the proper usage of the word. We call ourselves upasaka for the men, upasika for the women. Okay? So upasika, upatika, those who sit up close to the teacher. Now you all are sitting up close to the suttas. Although we are worlds apart in terms of cyberspace, we are unified now by this common listening and putting our minds together. In that sense, we are upasaka, upasika. We are close together in cyberspace, listening to the Dhamma, unified by the Dhamma, with this love for the suttas, love for the Dhamma. And that's what keeps us close to the Buddha. And we are upasakas, upasikas in that sense. And in time, we become savakas when we reach the path. Okay? And of course, at this point, we can call ourselves spiritual friends as long as we connect to each other in terms of the Dhamma, in terms of learning, in terms of bettering ourselves. So here, to walk the path, we have a spiritual friend who teaches us how to do it. The Buddha is our spiritual friend. So this is where Ananda one day was very happy and tells the Buddha, said, wow, I think half of the training is the spiritual friendship. And the Buddha says, no, it's the whole of the training. So this is the famous quote, 1.2.3.2. 1, 2, 3, 2. Right, where the Buddha replies, by relying upon me as a spiritual friend, Ananda, beings subject to birth are freed from birth. Beings subject to decay are freed from decay. Beings subject to death are freed from death. Beings subject to sorrow, lamentation, bodily pain, mental pain, and despair are freed from them. In this way, Ananda, it should be known, in a manner of speaking, how spiritual friendship, good companionship, good comradeship is the whole of the spiritual life. Right? It's the whole of the path of three trainings. So this is what we maintain when we gather to talk sutta, to study sutta. We spread spiritual friendship. So here we are still worldlings, okay? 1.2.3.3. We are still part of the world. We're still caught up with the world. Yet we are the good worldlings in the sense we try our best to keep the precepts. Okay, so we try to. So what's the problem here when we talk about the world? The world tend to follow crowds. We tend to lead crowded lives. I mean, just notice, even when we talk about Dhamma and Suttas, there's so many Zoom classes available nowadays. You have the Zoom classes crowding even cyberspace. And then, daily lives also, we're so crowded with so many things. That is why one of the idea of Buddhism, in fact, you can say the most basic practice in Buddhism is renunciation, letting go. What do we let go? The first thing we let go is the crowd. What did the Buddha do? He leaves the crowd. He leaves the crowded palace. He leaves society to be alone meditating. What could be more alone than sitting all by yourself, closing your eyes? So that is renunciation. We do this so that we are not defined and changed and controlled by the crowd. Because the crowd doesn't think. The crowd just kind of just moves around on its own like insects, and then it gets destroyed by the fire of greed, hate, delusion. So here we have to get out of the crowd. In fact, all human progress happens when someone gets out of the crowd and thinks for himself and then comes back and says, I got it, eureka. This is how you solve this problem. This is how you overcome this disease, and so on and so forth. So that's how human beings can progress. We are willing and able to get out of the crowd, although the human race is a crowd. So this is a very important understanding of the word worldling, the crowd, getting out of the crowd, right? So we do not want to be a blind worldling who blindly follows the crowd, unthinking, and all going one direction, which is destruction. We want to be a good worldling. We want to practice the precepts, train our minds, and then come back usefully and tell the crowd, hey, we are going the wrong way, we should go this way, all right? So this is the meaning of all these basic terms. Now we come to 1.3. This is a bit of philosophy of the path. Now when we look at the path, one important word here is atta. Atta is a Pali word, and Pali is the ancient language in which the Buddha Suttas have been preserved and handed down to us for over 2,500 years. Atta, artha in Sanskrit. It's a very interesting word. In English, it has two senses. Artha has the sense meaning as well as the sense purpose. This is called polysemy. In other words, a word has two meanings, which can apply at the same time. So the Eightfold Path gives us meaning of life as well as the purpose in life. How does this happen? Now, this is where we look closely at the Eightfold Path and we see it as a part of the Four Noble Truths. And we all, I'm sure many of you, all of you know, which of the four truths is the Noble Path. The first truth is there is suffering. Suffering is universal. The second truth, this suffering arises from craving. Now these two, 1 and 2, defines the meaning of life. If you ask what is life, this first truth tells you what really life is. There is unsatisfactoriness everywhere. And this arises from craving. That's what life is, meaning of life. Then number 3 is there is this way out, the ending of suffering, which is nirvana. And number 4 is the path, the way leading to this ending. And this is the Eightfold Path. So there you are. These 3 and 4 define our purpose as Buddhists. Having known the meaning of the path, we go on to the purpose, the practice. Right? And both meaning and purpose in Pali is atta, right? But so you have different aspects of the senses. Now, this quality of polysemy, a word with many meanings, makes Pali flexible, because when we talk about mental aspects of wisdom, of our training, you find the meanings often overlap. So if the words are too narrow, Chinese is a good example where the words can be very narrow, defined by in pictures, then we have some difficulty to explain the nature of the mind. So this is where Pali, and in a sense English too, because English and Pali and the Western languages, they come from the same family of languages called Indo-European. They are very flexible in that sense. So this is why Pali is very helpful to learn Pali to understand the suttas and the nature of the mind. All right. So when we reflect on the Four Noble Truths, we see this kind of broad-based approach that helps us better understand what true reality is. Now, we've gone to something a little bit more profound, okay? Now, in the Dhammapada, verse 277 to 279, you see the teaching on the 3 characteristics. This is 1315, okay? Can you see the verse at the end of 1315? DH 277 to 278. All conditioned things are impermanent. Let's forget unsatisfactory for a while. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, then one finds dukkha repulsive. This is the path to purity. Then Dhammapada 278, you change impermanent, you say unsatisfactory. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. When one sees this with wisdom, then one finds dukkha repulsive. This is the path to purity. So in other words, you have to see impermanence first. You have to see suffering first. Then only you say, wow, I don't want this. All right? Conditioned things. When you look at the world around you, these are conditioned things. You will notice they are permanent and they can never satisfy us. Now it is the 3rd verse which is tricky. 1317. Instead of sabbe sankhara, you notice the first line, sabbe sankhara, it changes to sabbe dhamma anatta. This is in 1317. Sabbe dhamma anatta highlighted, translated as all principles are non-self. Right? Okay, this is where Dhamma can also be translated as states, This Dhamma is one of the most polysemic words in Pali. It's got many meanings. So this is what has troubled lots of specialists and scholars and teachers. How do we translate this? So this is where monks have told me that best is to translate as principles. The principle underlying all things are non-self. When one sees this with wisdom, then one finds suffering repulsive. This is the path to purity. What does it mean? All principles are, I mean, the principles, all principles are non-self. The underlying nature of all things are such that there is no essence behind them. They are all conditioned, they're all interrelated. We cannot include nirvana here. Some scholars say, they say, oh, sabbe dhamma anatta, even nirvana is non-self. We can't say that. Because if you say nirvana is non-self, then you have predicated nirvana. You have compared nirvana to something that has self. So this nirvana is conditioned by the opposite. Nirvana is not like that. You can't compare nirvana to anything. It's like the fire, you have put it out. You can't compare it, you can't talk about it anymore. So this is the simplest I can put it. If you want to read in more detail, then there is a special essay on this, just talking about this. You can write to me, we'll send it to you. For those of you who like this really deep aspect of these three principles of anicca, dukkha, anatta, and the idea of Dhamma as principle underlying all things, as non-self, whereas Nibbana is unconditioned, so you cannot really predicate it, you cannot compare it in terms of worldly things. But it is enough to say here for our daily practice that we should understand two levels of experiences. Take suffering, for example. You have two levels. The first level is the body level. The other level is the mental level. Suffering happens on the body level. This is natural because our body is made up of the four elements: earth, water, fire, wind. It's subject to change, so the body manifests itself as pain when this change occurs. For example, if you sit too long without moving, there is pain. You have to shift. Then you feel comfortable for a while, and then you got to change again, and so on. Because of these elements cannot stay too long in one position. However, the mind is such that we can adjust ourselves. So the pain in the body comes and goes, but the pain in the mind, there's no pain really. We create this pain. When we look at the body, we say, oh, look, I'm sitting so long, I'm feeling pain, I don't like it. And so I don't like it. You're creating this pain, which is not necessary. In this sense, there is this saying, this is a modern saying, by the way, pain is natural, suffering is optional. This is based on the teaching from the Salatena Sutta, where on the parable of the two arrows. The Buddha says, a normal worldling is shot by one arrow, the body arrow, and he feels pain. But then he's shot by a second arrow, the mind arrow, and he suffers. Oh, why am I suffering? Why me? Why I? Why me? Why mine? Okay, then you suffer twice. Whereas in the case of the arahat, especially, the arahat is only shot by one arrow, just the body arrow. He says, okay, well, this is the nature of the body to suffer. The mind does not suffer. That's the meaning, okay, of the two arrows. So we can cut down mental suffering in that sense by letting go of the mental arrow. Okay, so there you are. I have covered most of the things I want to say. Of course, there are a lot of things here you can still talk about. We can go twice the time here if you want. So you do read through all this. Everything is there, which I've not said. And from the idea is to get to the middle way. And the middle way, of course, the Eightfold Path. And once you do that, then you will reach the supramundane Eightfold Path as a streamwinner. And this is what we should at least do in this life itself. Right? So I hope there's enough things for you to think about and to inspire, to practice. Okay, let's see. We have some time for questions. Okay. And if anyone can start with the question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, good. We have some question in the chat box. I will start with this question from Brother Ko from JB. Just for clarification, Brother Piya, the 5 lower fetters cause one to be born in the form or sensual world?
Oh, the lower fetters keep us in the sense world. Lower fetters, yeah. The higher fetters keep us in the higher worlds, the form world and the formless world, the Jhanas. Okay.
Okay, next question. This is from Rachel. She said that she heard of one meditation teacher who seems to be able to achieve jhanas and even claim he is an arahat. But he has broken some of the moral precepts, visiting prostitute while he was married. Does this illustrate the fact that he cannot even have attained streamwinning? That in order to attain streamwinning, sila must be accomplished.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Okay. All right. The situation is very clear. Once you see, nobody goes around claiming I am a stream winner, much less I'm an arahat. The moment someone claims that way, we at once say, okay, there's something wrong here, because the Vinaya rule is already broken. There's a Vinaya rule, especially the fourth parajika, where you cannot make any claim to have attained such states. Even if you really have, we don't make the claim. The reason is simple, because if you make the claim, you could be mistaken, and people will come to you because you made the claim. And most of them wouldn't be practicing. They will say, "Oh, my teacher is arahat," and they feel great about that, and that will in fact prevent them from practice. This idea of awakening by association, if you like. So the fact that he claims to be, even to claim that he attained jhana is a bit dubious. We don't do that either. My understanding, I'm not so certain exactly here, that the fourth parajika actually covers even claims of attaining jhanas. We don't go around telling people, oh, I can attain jhanas. Again, because if we do that, we will project wrong understanding to the students, to the people, and they come to us because of charisma, not because of for the sake of training. Ultimately, remember, it is you, each of us, whom we must make our own effort. We may have a teacher who's an arahat, so what's the big deal there? You yourself are not an arahat, you don't even practice, so what's the point of having a teacher who's an arahat? So we have to practice it ourselves. And people who make such claim, usually the shadow is very dark, like those things you have mentioned, Rachel. You find this teacher doing all kinds of strange things. One of the things I noticed after studying religion for decades, religion tend to attract pathological people. They tend to attract those parts of us which are dark, which are psychologically unwell with that way. And our purpose is to cure ourselves of greed, hatred, delusion, of lust, hate, and this wrong idea of things. So it's very important to understand this. That is why I keep saying, please be careful of teachers. They are not always right. Right? So that is why we got to go straight to the suttas also. That is why the Buddha keeps saying self-reliance, self-reliance. Don't depend on teachers. The teachers themselves, the good teachers, are those who put the teaching above themselves. Right? So this is the reason. In the US, in the 90s, there was really terrible scandals with so-called, gurus of Tantra, gurus, Vajra Guru, and with the Zen master senseis of really painful sufferings. I've documented on those things in detail. And apparently things are still happening there now, I'm told. So don't get caught with this very silly game of claiming to be arahats or awakened. We practice this. We do not know when we are going to be becoming streamwinners. If you have to ask, you are not yet one. It doesn't matter. You just go on practicing. You feel at peace. You feel happy. That is the good sign. And as you move along, the time will come. You look back and say, "Okay, now I know I'm really it." That time will come. But it's not something you go around printing on the business card and say, "Here you are, Piya Tan, streamwinner." It's not like that. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this another question. Can chanting be considered a ritual? And then there's another part. Is vow similar to aspiration? And how does one know that what state he has reached, for example, a stream winner?
Okay. I think I already answered the last part. We can't really know when we are attained the streamwinner. That's not important. Important thing is to go on practicing. It's the journey that you make. Now, chanting can be a ritual, but it need not be a ritual. It can be done properly. In fact, chanting is a very important part of Buddhist training. When I was in Thailand, the monastery where I live, we have like 200 monks, and many of them were very good chanters. They recite this, they memorize the sutta. So whenever I forget something, I'll go next door to a good monk friend and say, "Hey, can you recite this for me?" And I will just sit and listen and say, "Okay, stop, that's the one." And then I get that part which he has recited. So chanting does help us to learn the suttas. If it helps you to learn the sutta, it's not ritualistic. It is something useful. It is when you think that by chanting you can, perform miracles and things like that. Just by the chanting itself, it works. Then that is not the proper way of looking at it. Before we chant, you must have a mind and heart of loving kindness. And the words, although you recite in Pali, there is a good translation. You can explain the meaning in time, at the right time if you want to. So when you chant, you kind of, the meaning flows to your mind, and you feel this joy and peace, this loving kindness. And that is what works. That feeling of loving kindness that you send up with the chanting. So the chanting is to help us get into this state of calm and peace. And once you are calm and peaceful, you find that the chanting actually is jarring. It's not very helpful. It's just like the counting stage. You find after a while that the counting is a bit jarring. Then you know you don't need it anymore. So same thing with chanting. You find if the chanting is not helpful, then you stop it. Then you go on into meditation mode. You see? So make it meaningful. Understand what you're reciting. Do it with loving kindness. That's the proper way of chanting. Okay. Did I miss out anything?
Yeah. The other part is a vow similar to aspiration?
Okay. Yeah. If you just vow, especially when you vow about things, about states which are not really attainable. For example, you vow to be a bodhisattva, even to be Buddha. These are not things we take frivolously. Sometimes there is the state and there is the statement. Okay, some sects in Buddhism are very good at making big statements. Okay, but then it's not the state. It's not the real situation we are in. Okay, so when you make statements, I'm going to be this Buddha or that Buddha, I'm going to go to paradise, and we don't even know if this paradise exists or not. Those vows are not very helpful because they are speculative, they are based on dogmas. Yeah, we can claim, this sutta teaches this, but who wrote this sutta? Did the Buddha teach the sutta? We find many of these suttas are not taught by the Buddha. right? So these are things, nowadays we have the Pali Suttas, we have the ancient texts, and we have a better historical idea of what is taught by the Buddha, what are not taught by the Buddha. So we should investigate more carefully. What vows are we taking? So if you're just taking vows here because it makes us feel good, it gives us some kind of status, that's not helpful. So in that sense, the Buddha is saying, don't get caught up with vows. Because this was very common in the Buddha's time, where people, go through rituals. Rituals means you externalize what is inside you. Instead of practicing within you, you show it outwards through sound, through the senses, which doesn't help. So you have to, the change must occur within you. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Next question. There are Buddhists who practice feng shui, palm, face reading, and numerology. Are these against Buddha's teaching regarding right view?
Well, if you look at the first 13 suttas of the Digha Nikaya, there is a section there called the Sīlas, where the Buddha lists in great detail all those things which a monk would not do. And amongst them, I would say included all this feng shui, geomancy, fortune telling, all kinds. And it's amazing the list of various kinds of fortune telling are listed there. So, I mean, if you're really into Dhamma practice, you don't need these things. These are meant for people who are not sure, they worry about their business, worldly things, and about monks who are worried about money. So they go into this business of, geomancy, fortune telling, and so on. These are called the animal arts, tirachana, animal, what they call practices, meaning they will bring us unhappy rebirths. So the idea of attaining streamwinning, the idea of aspiring to streamwinning in this life, is so that we do not fall into the subhuman states, the animal state, the preta state, the hell-being state. So that we at least remain on the human level, the baseline, and then rise above that to the divine level through the four Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, right? And then reach the path. So we don't need these wrong livelihoods or these ideas about fortune telling and so on. Okay.
Thank you very much. There's another question also, I think was related to what you just said, but I just read it to you. Is praying to Datuk's deities, example, God of prosperity, etc., considered a ritual?
The simple answer is I would say yes. All right. Because the gods themselves, if they exist, they themselves need help. Okay. And if you are a true practitioner, the gods will worship you. What is the stories, the devas coming down and then worshipping the Buddha, even coming to, respect those monks who are good practitioners. Because the devas themselves, if they are wise, they are in need of marriage. And they fear listening to the Buddha's teaching on impermanence. So we don't worship them, right? There is a beautiful story here in Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The Buddha was lying down during his last moments. The story goes that the devas were, of course, very sad to see the Buddha sick, and they were sprinkling him with very fragrant sandalwood, beautiful flowers are falling from the heavens, and divine music can be heard. It's the first case of pipe music. You hear this sort of music in the shopping malls, but you have this kind of music happening around the Buddha. And the Buddha tells Ananda, Ananda, you see all these gods, they are showing their devotion in different ways. And then the Buddha says, this is not the way to worship me. You should not worship me in this way. You should not worship me at all, in fact, the Buddha said. The highest worship, Parama Puja, is to practice. Then there was one monk called Dhammarama. He was not, suddenly he disappeared, he was not there. You know, the Buddha is passing away with all these monks around it. Then someone said, you know, this monk's missing. Then the Buddha said, okay, ask him to come. And then the Buddha asked him, say, why did you disappear for a while? Dhammarama said, well, Bhante, you talk about the supreme worship, Parama Puja, is by our practice. I've gone into solitude to practice. I will attain arahat before you pass away. And the Buddha said, that's the right thing to do. So you want to worship the Buddha? Aspire to streamwinning at least. I mean, attaining arahat is difficult. Most monks have given up now, so they run around taking the Sangha life like some kind of retirement plan. They're so worried about money. So that's not the way to go. Okay, we've forgotten the basic idea of renunciation. So the suttas remind us, even as laymen, we can renounce the world, renounce the inner world of views and greed and hate and delusion. So let go of all these unnecessary things by aspiring to the path. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much. There's another question from Joseph Teng. Brother Piya, can you help explain between paramis and sila? Are the paramis considered higher form or sila and purer?
No, I wouldn't say that. You see, the word parami as used in the Jataka stories is not found in the suttas. The paramis, I think, started with the Mahayana. The Mahayana had 6 paramitas. Then the later Buddhists, probably the commentarial period, they also introduced paramis and they came up with 10 because of the popularity of the decimal system. So in a sense, it is said that the 6 paramis are older, in fact, smaller, lesser than to be older. So paramis here has the sense of past karma, past good karma you have done. So, you have this lingo which Buddhists sometimes use. They say, oh, you don't have the parami, so you are not able to attend this sutta, whatever, this sutta class, you need paramis to become Buddha. You need parami to do this, to do that. It's like another word for karma almost. So parami is a later term, meaning all the good you have done and those conditions that allow you to do something in the present. But we have to be careful not to talk in such a way that in the end we let all this define and limit our actions. The precept that you practice is definitely higher. Is that the word you use, parami and sila, is it?
The word is, are the paramis considered higher form of sila and purer?
Well, only sila, is regarded as one of the perfections to be cultivated. So I wouldn't say all the paramis are higher than sila. In terms of practice, you need sila first. You got to cultivate moral conduct first. You got to deal with the body and speech first. So always go back to basic. Start there. Okay, this paramis are a later idea of past good karma. You want to have past good karma, you start building it now. So don't resign yourselves to say, oh, I've not done good in the past. You do it now. And it's already in the past. See? So get it done now. Don't be fatalistic. Okay, let's go
Okay,
on.
thank you very much. That's all the question we have for today.
Okay, about just nice the time.
Yeah, thank you for asking the questions. And now we will have photo taking. So now we will have closing puja.
All right, and the dedication of marriage.
Yep.
Well, I'm very happy to see so many old friends and people
Could you please speak a bit louder?
we know. And so this is the time when we review what we have done today. We have recited the precepts, we have meditated, and we have listened to suttas. These are all very positive actions. Remember these good deeds you have done. you will recall them the next time you have difficulty in meditating. Use this as your reflection. For example, when you reflect on the fact that you have recited the precepts and you have kept this precept throughout the 2 hours of this session, that is Sīla Anusati, right? And then you have done meditation, at peace with yourself, right? Samadhi. So reflect in this way, you feel peaceful and go on with your next practice. And with this peace of mind, with this goodness you have done, tell yourself, may I be well, may I be happy. Send your thoughts to people who are important to you, people who are sick perhaps, people who have difficulties with you. Send your thoughts to them, wishing them well and happy wherever they are. Mention their name, picture them if you like. This is the best time to do it. May our teachers who have taught us the Dhamma to be well and happy. May our relatives, loved ones, wherever they are, be well and happy. Let us now close by reciting the closing salutations. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down to the Buddha. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namassami. Bow down to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down to the Noble Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.